You won't hold heroes hostages to torture them. You won't throw a hero against a wall once you have them by the neck. You sure won't start monologuing if you have a hero at gunpoint. You're the deadliest villain in history. A villain without an ego. Some might think the backstory of the world's most effective supervillain is one of strife, loss, hatred, and vengeance. That my parents were killed in the crossfire between police and bad guys. Or were collateral damage of a superhero saving the day. Nah. Warrants and kill on sight orders notwithstanding, I think my parents did a pretty good job raising me. I'm a college grad, family man, father of two, business owner, and I've only been late on my mortgage once. I don't get to see the family as much as I'd like, but when your main office is situated a mile and a half under a dormant volcano, you don't really get the 9 to 5 Monday through Friday schedule most others have. I'm not in it for vengeance or some other cliche plot point. I mean, yes, I intend to rule the world, but not for the sake of power or some other line of propaganda the Heroes Alliance and the media might be pushing. Hell, I don't want to rule the world. I just don't see an alternative to unfucking the planet within my lifetime. Hopefully, I can do this before my kids are in school, and they could grow up knowing Dad changed the world for them. I understand, Dave, but a moon-based laser weapon just isn't something we're going with right now. No, it's not the cost, it's the side effects. Yes, I get that we could hold entire nations hostage. No, it's the ozone and other environmental impacts. Come up with something a little less ecological disaster and a little more surgical, and we'll talk. You're the best mad scientist I've met, much less heard of, so I have faith in you. Speaking of which, are you and Faith coming over for dinner next weekend? We're doing fried chicken and karaoke. Alright, Dave. See you then. As I place the red phone back in its cradle, I realize just how lucky I am to have my employees. Just a little under 400 people working toward a common goal and with nearly 100% retention. Then again, with the benefits, matching 401k, annual 8% pay raises, and a full healthcare, it makes sense. Especially with an average tax-free income of $110,000. Even the most junior of the janitorial staff makes $85,000 minimum starting. The company picnics are always a hit, what with the office being under a tropical island. So it's no surprise that Jerry, my assistant, felt it perfectly okay to wear a "My boss is more evil than your boss" t-shirt for Casual Friday, as he knocks, then opens the door to my semi-private office. I believe in an open-door policy most of the time, unless I'm on an important call. "Boss?" he asks with a wave of the stack of reports in his hand. "Got the weeklies. Also, just got word that Topside Access spotted a small aircraft flying low over the island. Airwatch didn't see them. Standard response?" Standing with a sigh. "Drop them on my desk, if you don't mind. I'll take care of them later. Get the response team to the B1 corridor. Have all non-essential shelter in place. Let the response team know I'll be up in a sec." As he closes the door to return to his desk and hit the hero alert, I open the somewhat out-of-place wardrobe beside my desk. Inside is a plain, flat gray, but very expensive set of combat armor. As I don the armor, I wonder if today's team of supers will be the same as the last two, going for the dramatic elevator entrance and ending up a red smear at the bottom of the shaft. Carl in maintenance was the one who recommended we not opt for the overhead access door for the elevator car and put the safety brakes on a shutoff switch. He's also the employee of the month for having disabled set brakes and cutting the cables the last two intrusion attempts. Good man. Reaching the first level below ground corridor a minute later, I bumped up my estimation of this group of heroes. The motion alert for the main stairwell next to the elevator was blinking in my HUD. The same as it was for the 8 members of the identically kitted response team taking up positions alongside. Standard procedure, boys and girls. If they start flinging powers first, take them down. If they're willing to talk, we'll try to hire them. Ed, would you like the honors? A scoff and a tilt of one of the other mere advisors with, "Can do, boss," a few seconds later was all I needed to hear. Chances were, they wouldn't be new hires, but with supers you could never really tell where their loyalties lie. Were they political? For God and country? In it for the fame? Rarely, we'd meet one that was genuinely trying to make the world a better place. Even then, they were usually too set in their ways to consider working for the infamous Midnight Warlord. Not a fan of the moniker issued by the Alliance, partly because my best work was usually between 2 p.m. and sunset. Also because I wasn't a warlord. Ultimately, it wasn't important. The results are what matters. As the plane's steel door to the stairwell blew from its hinges, narrowly missing Ed, it became apparent that this was a dramatic entrance. We were all thoroughly entranced. The team of 4 brightly colored, spandex-wearing heroes only solidified the assumption. How they managed to strike a pose with the strong breeze blowing out of nowhere and rippling their capes in long locks, I've never figured out. At the very front was a strong, chiseled chin. Slightly behind that was the rest of the apparent leader, with the red and white spandex, codpiece, why? And blue cape. This was clearly our patriotic trope hero. Flanking either side were twin brunettes in purple and some shade of orange, respectively. At the back was some sort of pale weightlifter. Ah, his skin just turned into metal. Neat. Compared to my near invulnerability, super strength, and the superheated jets of plasma I could shoot from my hands, not much of a threat. Still, neat. My powers were still unknown to the Alliance and the world at large, but it helps when trying to bench press a transmission into a 55 Buick. The invulnerability and strength, that is. Still haven't found a safe use for the plasma thing. Halt, foul villains! Commander Jeep Patriot, or whatever his name is, commands in a loud, commanding voice. Ed straightens up a bit. We are halted already. Also, we can hear you just fine. Confusing heroes is a corporate class we offer. Yes, I suppose you are. Nevertheless, halt your villainous ways. Again, with the hero talk. We're not doing anything villainous at the moment. How about we talk out our issues in the conference room? Ed starts in on the pitch. There's no escape from just... Wait, what? No. No! Your reign of terror ends now! And with that, the short-lived fight was on. Fortunately, in spite of the capes, none of them could fly. The security team in their room full of monitors and switches was on the ball today, since he'd barely finished speaking when the floor dropped out from under the head honcho. His screams were only audible for around 20 seconds, but the fall takes 30. With the other 3 heroes stunned into silence, and 9 railguns capable of punching through 2 feet of reinforced steel or metal skin, Ed angled for the peaceful resolution again. So, conference room? Coffee? Persistence occasionally pays off. Of the 3, only the aptly named Metal Man decided to sign on. The other 2 were electrocuted in their seats as they tried to fling a pair of, no shit, ninja stars at my face. Not that it would have done any damage, but still, it's the thought that counts. With a new employee going through orientation, the topside access security guys handling the ridiculously painted VTOL aircraft on the beach, and Erica from accounting's office birthday party in an hour, I quickly showered and changed back into my Bermuda shorts and Hawaiian shirt casual Friday combo. Monday was going to be a big day, with half a dozen small countries already under my direct control, and puppet leadership in Russia, China, and over half of the congressmen in the United States in my pocket. I was ready to move to Phase 3. Once we had the Leadership Council of the UN, we could start on organizing the heretofore corporately opposed revamp of our world's energy production and resource depletion. My team of engineers had already made significant headway in the fusion energy department, but for the near term, nuclear seemed the most viable option. Redirecting 90% of the planet's military funding into space exploration and technology would lead to eventual harvesting of asteroids and other plentiful resources within our solar system. High-efficiency farming, support for new capital ventures, and returning the economy to a precious metal-backed currency were just a few of the steps. It's a shame that the world was so fractured that nations couldn't agree on much of anything, but you play the hand you've been dealt. If some folks wouldn't get out of the way of a better future for my kids, then they were crushed. At this rate, I could go back to my preferred full-time career of husband, dad, and tinkerer. This story was written by Eye in the Sky on a Stick. Read by a bag of Vicodin. Thank you for listening. You send your DNA off to discover your ancestry. One day, you see several suspicious-looking cars pull up outside your house. Military officers begin to surround your home, and a woman gets out of one of the cars and walks straight to your front door. They have your DNA results. One minute you're watering your herbs, and the next minute you're being told you're impossible. Wednesdays, am I right? Mr. Gomez, are you okay? Did you hear what I said? Sorry, I was worrying about my basil. Can you guys have someone water it while I'm gone? We'll get you more for the compound, Mr. Gomez. But that wouldn't be my basil. I sat in some large vehicle, probably a dark unmarked van of some sort, with my little basil plant as we headed who knows where. This was all a bit too much for someone who just had a little curiosity about where they came from. Are you guys sure? How could I be related to something so ancient? We have no idea, Mr. Gomez. That's why we needed to take you. You might be the key to, well, everything, really. I never wanted to be a key. I didn't even like keys. That was my excuse whenever I lost mine, anyway. I don't want to let anybody down, is all. You won't, Mr. Gomez. Never again. They brought me through dark corridors, down a hall that seemed to be in eternal decline. My legs felt like jelly, and my head felt as though it could spin forever. They dropped me in a room with dark green walls, and nothing but a shoddy bed and a little table. I sat down my basil, gave it a little water, and checked its leaves for damage. At least I know exactly what you are, my friend. I believe I fell asleep, for how long I couldn't say, when a knock awoke me. In came the same woman who had first given me my results. I think we owe you some answers, Mr. Gomez. Down more dark descending hallways we trudged. At the end we reached a meeting room, where they gave me a bit of perspective. Mr. Gomez, you can call me Mrs. Ottweiler. I'm the lead on what is known to a select few as the Genesis Project. We were charged with finding where we all came from. Well, you picked me up in Dallas, but No, we mean life. Where life came from. We found some clues a couple decades ago that have led us down a path to finding our source. We found it, here, buried in ice, about 9 years ago. And that's how we got here today. So where do I come in? You're its, direct descendant, Mr. Gomez. But I thought I was German, with maybe a little Dutch? That's what I was testing for, anyway. You're alien, Mr. Gomez. So, no to the Dutch, then? Ugh. You're a descendant from somewhere in the stars, Mr. Gomez. The creature that we found, you're the only human match we've ever seen. We're not even sure how that's possible, but we are completely sure. Your roots lie down here in the ice. Oh. Well, that's something. It is. Now, we have a lot of work to do, and unfortunately, you'll have to stay here. Maybe forever. We'll try to make you as comfortable as possible, and be accommodating to any requests you may have. I have two. Which are? I'd like a proper watering can for my plant, and I would like to meet this thing. That can be arranged. More ever-descending hallways awaited me, after a brief rest in my room and a check on the basil. They assured me they had some sort of son substitute for him, but who really knows with the government? Anyway, down the halls we went. I kept thinking how strange all of this was. How could something like this happen to little old Mr. Gomez, the neighborhood plant guy? But life takes you on a lot of twists and turns as you go, doesn't it? Sometimes it turns out you truly are as alien as you've always felt. We came to the end of the hallway, and a frost-covered door stood before me. I wasn't nervous, oddly. It felt a bit like a homecoming, to be honest. Mrs. Attweiler opened the door, and we stepped through. A wall of ice stood maybe 100 yards away. Faintly in the ice, the edges of a wildly strange, unknown creature could be made out. Its head was ducking down, almost to human height. More on instinct than desire, I strode out to get a closer look. Now up against the wall, the creature's face sat stoic a few feet above my head. I smiled lovingly at it, and I could have sworn it somehow smiled back. And like any good guest, I thought I should introduce myself. Nice to meet you, Grandpa. My name's Jason. This story was written by Psalm of Lament. Read by Back Vicodin. Thank you for listening. You can hear the sound of the sun from Earth. It is loud, but the planet has adapted. Suddenly, the light goes out. 8 minutes after it died, the last bit of light reaches Earth. It'll take 13 years before the roar of the sun the moment it died reaches us. When the sun extinguished, the world worked quickly, setting up artificial day, night cycles for major cities, and then expanding outwards. The refugees poured in, of course, and life got worse, but that was years ago. Hardly anyone even remembered natural sunlight at this point. But the screaming continued, the loud, ever-present, piercing pitch that the sun emitted seemed to continue, almost forever. Until today. Today was the day. Scientists, with all their calculations, had figured out the exact moment that the sun's screaming would stop. Like New Year's celebrations in New York, the world was coming together for this precise moment. Globally, each day was treating it as daytime. They'd planned for the exact moment to recreate the extinguish by turning all lights off at the exact moment the screaming stopped. The countdown begun, echoing globally. A countdown from 10. Everyone waiting with bated breath. For the first time in the history of human life, we would finally know the sound of silence. The countdown continues. You could see how excited people were. 5. Children who had never even seen sunlight were getting excited now. What would the world hear? Time seemed to slow down. 3, 2, 1. The lights went out. A global night, just like that first day. But this time, the screaming stopped. A moment of pure silence, deafening. Hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and made us accustomed to the screaming. Imagine your brain adapting to hundreds of millions, if not billions of years of evolution, then experiencing a sudden, dramatic change. Like the human race adapting to breathe oxygen and suddenly being required to breathe lead. That's what it felt like. It wasn't long before the screaming started again. Not from the sun, but from the pain. Such a great pain. Many killed themselves. Even more died of natural causes. But those that tried to continue knew the truth. The cities tried to adapt by setting up speakers, but it was never enough. It won't be long before the human race dies out. No one can live with such a great pain for long. I guess this is how the world ends. Not with a bang, but with deafening silence. This story was written by Erebus495. Read by Back Vicodin. Thank you for listening. This next story was written by Merge Long. The ancient stargazing nutjobs have been warning us for a while about it. It took the best part of 32 centuries to organize society for the big move underground, where humanity learned to adapt to being independent of the sun, leaving behind the light of day, our cities and our mountains and forests and oceans. Sure, we still manage contact with the surface and its solar observatories and our solar observation satellites, gazing intently at the sun, awaiting the moment it would go out. For the longest time, we weren't even sure if it would. With each passing sidereal day, the conspiracists argued more and more passionately that the scientists had duped us. The greatest prank in history, one that had cost billions of lives and changed the entire course of human history. The rest of us, we clung on to that hope. Maybe the scientists were wrong. Maybe one day some whiz from Princeton, now located 10 kilometers beneath the old campus, would pop up and tell us the ancient astronomers had missed something, maybe miscarried a digit in their calculations or something, and we could all recolonize above. Geothermal energy meant we didn't need to rely on more temporary sources of energy, and 3200 periods meant scientists had plenty of time to work their magic and create wickedly ingenious ways of harnessing that energy. But come on. Compared to the warmth of sunlight on skin, the heat of the lower lithosphere is nothing. I would know, since I've been to the surface. Once, when I was 20. It started as a typical internship to the solar astronomy department at Cambridge. I entered data about solar maximums and minimums into programs for 6 sidereal months for Professor Lucia's work on the heliopause. But apparently I asked the right questions around the right people, and soon I was working as a research student by her side, parsing solar irradiance fluctuation models into the quantum supercomputers and publishing the results. And somehow, they had noticed us, and they gave us a ludicrous amount of money to go above for 2 periods and work at the Saharan Large Array. And so, sidereal months of security inspections later, I was working under the sun, one of 500 people in the entire world on the surface. Make better models with the data, they told us. We need to understand our own star better. Our models were apparently not that good, because while they predicted another 200 periods of sunlight, 6 sidereal months into the experiment, the sun started to go out. It didn't go out immediately, you know. You probably learned that in school anyway. Professor Lucia and the rest of us research students, there were 5 of us, first noticed the irradiance anomaly and waved it away as just that, an anomaly. But it wasn't that. It was the beginning of a trend. And so 3 sidereal months later, all non-essential staff were evacuated back underground. By then, the average outside temperature had plummeted to 185K, and our instruments had started to fail anyway, not being designed for those temperatures. A sidereal month later, we followed them underground, the last humans to see the light of day, ever. We didn't have the best data from underground, but all data from our nuclear-powered autonomous observatories suggested that solar minimum occurred 3,224 periods, 4 sidereal months, and 22 sidereal days after Terror Day, and it hasn't risen since. That was 13 periods ago. Today, I woke up to the most astounding silence I have ever known. These 2 stories were read by a bag of Vicodin. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening. You're finally meeting your SO's parents. They are definitely demigods, and your SO is really trying to hide it. But the parents are so adorably awkward and out of touch that they keep slipping up. 8 months have passed since I began my relationship with Jenny, and this weekend I finally get to meet her parents. Despite countless warnings that they are weird and awkward, I'm excited to visit her home. After being with her this long, I was starting to worry that there was a problem with me. Was she embarrassed of me? Did she think that her parents wouldn't like me? I don't know. It's Friday night, and we have arrived in Jenny's hometown of Athens, Georgia. While driving outside of town and into a wooden area, I'm feeling quite nervous. Are you sure they'll like me? I asked Jenny, insecurely, unintentionally making my anxiety obvious. Yes, of course. I love you, so they will too, she says with a giggle. God, she's amazing. As I'm going through the possible scenarios in my head, I pull up to the residence of Jenny's parents. To my surprise, the house is gigantic, almost like a mansion, made up of brick, mortar, and stone. The front door is stashed above a stairway with a large overhang, with pillars rising up and holding its weight. It reminds me of Greek architecture I had seen in books and movies. At the forefront of the driveway is a large stone statue of a man with a sword and shield, slashing at what appears to be a three-headed dog of some sort. I didn't know your family was rich, I joke. Walking up the stairs, I notice the door open on its own, as if someone was opening it gently. Her parents are nowhere to be seen, though. I give Jenny a strange look, and she just laughs and says, "Oh, we have a button we press to open the door. Don't give it too much thought." Inside of the house is beautiful, with a swirling staircase and old paintings covering the walls. Greek lettering is prominent above the doorways and archways. A bookcase filled with material in a foreign language can be seen in the next room over. "This is amazing," I exclaim. A man appears on top of the stairs. Wait, was he there before? I shake it off and turn my attention to his physique. He has considerable muscle mass and a perfect complexion. I'm almost certain he could be an Olympic athlete. His long hair and full beard flow majestically. "Welcome, mortal. Boyfriend of our beloved Jennifer. You may call me Dion." Jenny's father bellows, startling me half to death. I take note of the weird choice of words, and Jenny looks nervous. All of a sudden, I feel a strangely comforting touch behind me, and as I turn around, I see what might be the most gorgeous woman on the planet. Her bright blonde hair and glowing skin overwhelms my senses. Hold on. She looks as young as Jenny. That doesn't seem right. "And I am Helen. Please, come sit, my dear. I will serve you the finest meal in all the land. We have been waiting a long time for this," proclaims Jenny's mother. We sit at an unnaturally long table, made of smooth marble, as she brings out a platter of golden apples. "What are these?" I ask. Before her parents can respond, Jenny chimes in. "You haven't seen golden apples before? They grow all over around here." Is she sweating? "So, do tell what life is like nowadays. I've heard humanity is doing many great things," says Helen with a genuine smile. "No need to embarrass him, Mom," interjects Jenny hastily before I can respond. I'm thoroughly confused at this point. "Tell me, son, are you a warrior? Or, what do you do?" asked Dion earnestly. "Well, I stop in my tracks as my eyes wander to a glass on the table next to Dion. It is very, very slowly filling up with what looks like wine out of thin air. "Dad!" Jenny exclaims, holding back a shout as Helen slaps her husband's arm. I have to ask. I need to know. "I'm sorry, but are you guys—" "No!" the family shouts in unison. "Okay, noted," I say as I excuse myself to the bathroom to process what's happening. I can't believe it. My girlfriend's parents are gods. Or demigods? I'm not sure what to do, but I can guarantee this weekend is going to be interesting. This story was written by username Taken. Read by a bag of Vicodin. Part 2 coming soon. And thank you for listening. You are the immortal overlord which has plagued the land for centuries. After years, you have discovered a life hack to getting what you want. Simply spread rumors that the things you want are part of a prophecy to kill you, and they'll bring it right to you. Immortality has its costs. The first of these is boredom, or at least it is for me, which is one of the reasons people are always upset about my reign. I need entertainments, and they don't always like it. The entertainments don't like it. Also, usually they're friends and family and neighbors. It's what I would consider my one real weakness, but it's a small price to pay for a stable and prosperous kingdom, which is something everyone wants, but they lose objectivity and the ability to see the big picture when that price is people they know or obsessed with long after the fact. Seriously, get over it. The second is a rare substance found deep beneath the earth, where the primal things skitter and moan at the half-formed nature of their creation. Hard to find, dangerous to extract, but if you know what you're doing, and I do, you can use it to live forever, among other nice perks like the ability to melt would-be heroes' precious heirloom swords with a simple wave of the hand. My first few batches of this stuff, when I was first starting out, I extracted myself. A hero and adventurer of some renown was I, before deciding this great patchwork of squabbling kingdoms needed to stop with the constant blood and chaos and settle down some. Now, of course, that's too dangerous, for any number of reasons. So I appointed a court seer. Mostly this person just spews convenient nonsense that helps with my propaganda efforts, but every couple generations or so, I'll give one of them a nice big bag of platinum coin and tell them to go rogue. They then go out and find some scrappy group of promising malcontents, tell them they were banished for speaking a true prophecy that has my imperial knickers all in a twist. These useful crusaders are always easy to find, too. I keep good records of my entertainments, and a close eye on the people close to them, and the descendants of those people, because gods can people keep pointless grudges for a long time. The banished seer tells them that the substance I need is necessary to weaken me, so I can be killed. They sneak in to the fortress. Some member of my staff plays double agent and tells them to pour it in a vessel that's sure to be added to my food. Then they come confront me, and I have more entertainments. And I have the substance I need. I did worry at first about the heroes figuring out how to use the stuff as well, but that requires another artifact which I stumbled upon during one of my deep delves into the bowels of creation, and I'm fairly certain it's one of a kind. I keep it on my person at all times. Easy enough. Or it had been. This latest batch of would-be Avengers has become a problem. Their leader is a self-righteous snot of a woman. That's no surprise. But she's perceptive as well. She's well-read. She tempers her zeal with actual fucking research, not just hoping she'll stumble upon whatever she needs by questing around, or taking my old seer at his word. She actually killed him, if you can imagine it. Saw through his ruse, maybe. I don't know. He was one hell of a liar. That's sort of the first requirement for being a court seer. I'm still mad about it. But I don't have time to be mad. I have to find her. I have to kill her. She's gone to the bowels of creation and begun collapsing the caverns. That'll take decades to dig out. Some of them may not be recoverable at all. This cannot happen. She has to die. She refuses to do it so far. I'm growing weaker. Soon I'll just be a mortal man in his late 50s. I should have gone after her personally the moment I caught word of what she was doing, but I've gotten complacent. Now it's too late, and once she's done sealing off the caverns, she'll be coming for me. This story was written by Sterling Magleby. Read by A Bag of Vicodin. Thank you for listening. The end of days has come. You and 3 buddies revamp different types of forklifts to run on alternative energy. You all wander the wastes and help people with seemingly impossible tasks. You are the forkmen of the apocalypse. Legend tells of 4 men on steeds of steel, with hearts of iron. On forklifts they rode, faster than lightning, roaming from town to town, saving folks from certain demise. No one knew how they did what they did, but you could bet the bank on one thing. Wherever you found folks in imminent danger, they would come. They would always come. The old man leaned back in his chair, taking a long sip of tea. Fire crackled in the center of the gathered men and women. "Forklifts?" asked one of the younger men. "You're screwing with us. How dumb do you think we are?" The storyteller laughed, a deep and resonant sound. "Not a word of lie, boy. I know it for a fact." The young man crossed his arms, obviously offended. "How do you know it's true? You seen these magic forklifts?" The old man winked, a wry smile stretching across his face. "More than that, boy. These men saved my life once upon a time. After I tell you my story, I can even prove it." The others whispered at this, having heard the story 1,000 times, but never hearing of any proof. The storyteller waited for them to calm before continuing. "I was a boy of 20 years when the bombs fell from the sky, when the zombies arose from the ground, and when the aliens came down from the sky. But most importantly, I was 20 years old when they saved my life." "Bombs?" asked the young man, incredulous. "Like nuclear bombs? Those never went off. Aliens, sure, everyone knows that. Zombies, well, you could see 'em in the street. Nukes, though? No dice, old man." He chuckled again, wiping away a tear. "Boy, you don't know how wrong you are. The nukes created the zombies and called the aliens. They detected the EMPs from space. That's what brought them here to begin with. Now sit back and listen before I twist your ear." He took another long sip of tea, pausing for a long moment. "As I was saying, I was 20 when they saved my life. I was hiking through Seattle, that's up north, where the aliens reign now, and I were beset by a horde of hellish zombies. They followed my footsteps unerringly, never once losing the scent of my young flesh. I battled them in a fighting retreat. Every day I killed 12, 2 and every day they got 100 more. I swear, towards the end there were 10,000 of the bastards, shuffling on, never resting. I hid in a building, huddling up with the group of survivors. Damned luck struck me then. As the building shuddered, metal groaned, large chunks of concrete tumbled from the ceiling. It sounded like the death throes of some giant, a dying god trying their best to take as many with them as possible before its life were snuffed out. The group of survivors, ragged and worn, huddled in a corner of the room. With every groan and quake, they winced as a group, shying away from their now inevitable deaths. You could almost hear the huddled masses making peace with their gods, making peace with themselves. One small boy, however, did not pray. In fact, he didn't seem to be worried at all. That's because he knew that they would come. They always came when times seemed most dire. Me, I just asked God one simple thing: leave my pretty face unmarred. Just then, a miracle occurred. With a sound like an avalanche, the debris blocking the door slowly shifted, then gradually rose, looking much like a levitating act in a magic show. The group were stunned by the sight, struck dumb by what they thought of as nothing short of divine intervention. That is, until they saw 2 gleaming forks lifting a massive slab of concrete. No sooner than the debris were cleared, 2 forklifts sped into the room. Each carried one side of a heavy canvas secured to the right and left fork respectively. They hurtled through the room, directly towards the huddled group. Dumbstruck awe turned to absolute terror as they saw their lives being suddenly cut short. The boys simply cheered, having absolute faith in those that had come to save them. His faith proved well placed. Just as the forklifts were about to collide with the group, they executed a power slide, instead ending up directly on either side of the survivors. Just then, a massive slab of concrete fell from the ceiling. Instead of smashing the survivors, it landed heavily on the outstretched canvas. In a well-practiced maneuver, they slanted the canvas to one side, and the concrete slab cracked against the floor harmlessly. By now, 2 forklifts had cleared a route out of the building. The other 2 used the canvas like martial artists, weaving through the falling building with grace and fluidity. Not one survivor lost their life under the care of the forkmen. As they cleared the building, the 2 with the canvas sheet unfastened it. They honked their horns as they left, speeding off into the distance, off to save another who called for them. They all stayed silent for a long moment, realizing the story was at its end. "And? The proof?" asked the young man. The man smiled and stood, beckoning them to follow. He led them to a canvas-covered lump tucked away under an overpass. He pulled the canvas down, revealing a steel-gleaming forklift. shiny and new as the day it were built. But how? You weren't one of them, right? Asked the young man. The old man smiled. Not then, but later. That happened when we faced the gods in Ragnarok. Then again, that's a story for another time. This story was written by Sir Lemon Cakes. Read by a bag of Vicodin. Thank you for listening.